They say betrayal never comes from your enemies, and I learned that the hard way. I remember the day I met Lauren like it was yesterday. She was radiant, with a laugh that seemed to light up the world. I was just an ordinary guy, not particularly handsome, not particularly wealthy, but I was good at loving her. Or so I thought. I worked hard to give her everything. A stable home, a promising future, a life where she wouldn't have to worry about anything. But sometimes, even your best isn't enough. The cracks started small, almost invisible. A mist, dinner here, a late night there. Lauren had taken a new job at a marketing firm, and she threw herself into it with gusto. She'd talk about her co-workers, mostly women, she'd assure me, but one name kept coming up, Jason. Jason says this, or Jason thinks that. I didn't think much of it at first. Why would I? We were married. We had promises, vows. But then the late nights became more frequent. Her phone seemed permanently glued to her hand. She started taking extra care with her appearance before work. Red flags waved like banners in a storm. But I didn't want to see them. That's what love does, doesn't it? It blinds you even as it stabs you in the gut. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon. Lauren had gone out with some friends for brunch. I was cleaning up around the house when her tablet buzzed on the counter. She'd forgotten to lock it. A message popped up. Jason. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? I stared at the words, my heart pounding so. Hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. With trembling hands, I tapped on the screen. The messages were all there, laid out like evidence in a courtroom, months of deception and lies. The same Jason she'd assured me was just a work buddy. When she came home that evening, the tablet was on the kitchen table, open to the damning messages. She froze in the doorway, her face draining of color as she saw it. Tom, she began, her voice quivering. I can explain. Explain, I said, my voice eerily calm. Go ahead, Lauren. Explain, make it make sense, she stammered, fumbling for words. Finally, she settled on the one excuse I'd heard too many cheaters use on TV dramas. It was a mistake, a harmless mistake. Harmless? I laughed, a bitter, humorless laugh that echoed through the kitchen. You call months of betrayal harmless? You call sneaking around behind my back harmless? She cried, begged, said it didn't mean anything. But her tears meant nothing to me now. They were as fake as the promises she'd made. That night, I told her to leave. I didn't want to see her face, didn't want to hear her voice. She left with only a hastily packed bag and the phone she'd used to shatter my trust. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room staring at the walls, the silence of the house pressing down on me. Memories of our wedding day kept flashing through my mind. The way she'd looked in her dress, so beautiful, so full of promises, she had no intention of keeping. And then an idea started to form, a dark, vengeful idea that gripped me tight. Like a vice tightening its grip, Lauren had left her wedding dress in our closet, a haunting reminder of promises now broken. She once spoke about preserving it, keeping it as a memento of our perfect day. And now that same dress, the symbol of our vows, was about to play a very different role in what came next. In the days that followed, I moved through a haze of cold, calculated anger. I went to the store and bought a metal trash bin, lighter, fluid, and a box of matches. By dusk, everything was set up in the backyard. The wedding dress lay folded neatly inside the bin, pristine, yet lifeless. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I struck the match and dropped it in. The flames took hold instantly. The fire devoured the fabric, the delicate lace and satin curling into blackened ash. The acrid scent filled the air, but to me, it smelled like justice. When nothing remained but ashes, I gathered them into a small box. Then I sat down to write her a note, not one of rage, but of finality. I wanted it to chill her to the bone, words that would echo in her mind forever. Lauren, you called it a harmless mistake, but mistakes have consequences. Our marriage was supposed to mean something. You chose to burn it to the ground. So I did the same. Don't come back. Don't call. This chapter of your life is over. Tom, I placed the box of ashes and the note on the dining table. Then I locked the doors, turned off the lights, and for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. The next day, Lauren came by to pick up some of her things. I heard her call my name. As she entered the house, then she reached the dining room. There was a gasp, sharp, disbelieving, and then came the sobs, raw, broken, the kind of crying that comes from deep inside. Part of me felt satisfaction. The other part felt nothing at all. I stayed upstairs, listening as she pleaded for another chance. But I didn't answer. Eventually, she left, slamming the door behind her. She never came back. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into rebuilding the life I had put on hold. I joined a gym, started volunteering at a local animal shelter, and reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage. Therapy helped me process the betrayal without letting it define me. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again, or maybe even a better version of myself. As for Lauren, I heard through mutual friends that things hadn't gone well. Jason dumped her not long after the truth came out. Apparently, he wasn't interested in someone who could betray so easily. She moved into a tiny apartment on the other side of town, struggling to keep her life together. Part of me wanted to feel pity, but mostly, I felt relief. One day, I ran into her at a coffee shop. She looked tired, worn down. She tried to apologize, to explain, but I stopped her with a calm, steady voice. "Lauren, I've moved on. You should too." And with that, I walked away, leaving her and all the pain she caused behind me. Sometimes life doesn't hand you closure. You have to create it yourself. Burning that dress and writing that note wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my power. It was about ending a nightmare and beginning again. And now, as I look toward the future, one thing is certain: I will never let anyone take my happiness away again.